Guys, the Cowboys gave up 2 fifth-round picks just to trade up 1 spot in the first round, and that move was made for one reason only: Caleb Downs. Honestly, for me, his value goes way beyond a first-round grade, and the expectation bar is already sitting at an all-time high. But when I sat down and actually listened to what Parker and Will McClay had to say about him, my confidence just went through the roof. And today, I'm breaking down everything they said so you can understand exactly why this Cowboys defense might look completely different because of this one pick. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So let's start at the beginning. Who exactly is Caleb Downs, and why did this organization go out of their way to make sure he was a Cowboy? Because look, trading up costs you something. You don't give away 2 fifth-round picks without being absolutely certain about a guy. And from everything Will McClay and Parker said, it's clear this wasn't just a he was the best player available situation. This was a targeted, deliberate decision built on months of evaluation, film study, and face-to-face visits. And the more you hear them talk about Caleb Downs, the more you realize, yeah, this kid is genuinely different. Parker put it in a way that really stuck with me. He said Caleb Downs is a natural football player. You know that kid in the schoolyard who gets picked first every single time? That's Caleb Downs. And I think that analogy actually says a lot, because it's not just about physical talent, it's about the whole package. The way he carries himself, the way he processes the game, the way he just fits wherever you put him. Parker talked about watching 3 years of film on this guy and said there was no difference in the tape, not a single game where he looked lost or out of position or like he was guessing. Every snap, he was making the right decision, tracking the football, and just being in the right spot. I mean, how rare is that, honestly? You watch film on most prospects and you're gonna find inconsistencies, games where they disappear, moments where their technique breaks down. With Downs, that just wasn't there. And Parker used a phrase that I keep coming back to. He said Downs' brain is connected with his feet, right? And that's such a perfect way to describe what separates good players from great ones. Because you can be physically gifted and still be a half-second slow mentally, and at this level, that half-second gets you beat every time. But when your mind and your body are working together in real time, when you're reading the play before it develops and your feet are already moving, that's when you become a problem for offenses. That's what Downs brings to this defense. Now, Will McClay took it even further, and honestly, his perspective as VP of Player Personnel gave me a whole different appreciation for what this pick means. He called Caleb Downs a force multiplier. And look, that term gets thrown around sometimes, but McClay actually explained what it means in real football terms. He said football is about 11 guys being on one accord, and when you have a player who can not only handle his own assignment, but also communicate to everyone around him, covering up mistakes, identifying where the issues are, understanding the whole defense from a bird's-eye view, that player multiplies the ability of every single person on that field with him. He doesn't just make himself better, he makes the entire defense better. And you know, that's not something you can coach into somebody. That's just how Downs is wired. The story that really got me, though, and McClay brought this up, is what happened during Caleb Downs' 30 visit. You know, typically when teams bring prospects in, they're running them through drills, testing their knowledge of basic concepts, seeing how they handle the playbook, standard stuff. But Downs came in and without even being prompted, broke down Alabama's defense, a system he had learned 3 years ago. Then he broke down Ohio State's defense, and then he broke down the Cowboys' own defense. He already had a working understanding of their scheme before they even drafted him. McClay described him as a football savant, and honestly, I don't think that's an exaggeration. When you can walk into a building and dissect 3 different defensive systems on the fly, you're operating on a completely different level. McClay said it himself, it just works that way in Downs' head. Concepts click for him in a way they just don't for most players. His dad apparently used to call him a little Nick Saban. And you know what? After hearing all of this, I get it, because Nick Saban wasn't just a great football mind. He was someone who could see the whole board, who understood how every piece connected to every other piece. And that's exactly what Downs does as a player. He doesn't just know his job, he knows everybody's job. Now let's talk about the versatility piece, because this is where things get really interesting from a schematic standpoint. Christian Parker was asked about how he sees Caleb Downs fitting as a chess piece, specifically around the inside linebacker role, and his answer was really telling. He said, "The best thing about Caleb Downs is you don't have to project anything because you can already see it on film. At both of his college stops, he was playing multiple spots, off the ball, on the edge, even lining up 3 yards behind the nose tackle in goal line situations at Ohio State and just tracking the football. So the versatility isn't theoretical, it's documented." Parker compared him to Baron Browning, a guy who played both spots at Ohio State, was drafted in Denver, started at Mike as a rookie, and then moved to the edge. He said Caleb Downs has similar traits, and right now the plan is to keep him at the Mike linebacker spot, put him on the Mike, and see how that develops, before exploring the full range of what he can do. And look, Parker was clear, the versatility is there, it's real, but you want to get a guy settled into one spot first before you start moving him all over the place. That's smart coaching. You don't want to overwhelm a rookie, even one as cerebral as Caleb Downs, by throwing him into 5 different roles from day one. McClay also made a really important point about what versatility actually means in today's NFL, because people hear versatile player and they think it just means the guy can do a bunch of stuff, but McClay framed it differently. He said today's offenses are so sophisticated with their motion, their personnel groupings, all of it, that defenses have to be able to match that. The field is still 53 yards wide and 100 yards long. You have to occupy that space, and you have to be able to manipulate people within it. Players like Caleb Downs blur the traditional labels, the 3-4, the 4-2, whatever formation you're trying to put on it, because when you have guys who can play multiple spots intelligently, the defense itself becomes harder to attack. Offenses can't just say, okay, they're in a 3-4, so here's how we attack it, because Caleb Downs might be somewhere completely different on the next snap. And honestly, that's the bigger picture here. This isn't just about Caleb Downs filling a roster spot or being a good starter. The way both Christian Parker and Will McClay talk about him, you get the sense that he's going to be the anchor that everything else on this defense is built around. McClay talked about how the process of building this roster has been collaborative. Dialogue between Will, the Jerry Jones, Klein Kubiak, Brian Schottenheimer, the position coaches, everyone contributing perspectives on what the schematic fits are, what they're looking for, how to piece it all together. And at the center of that defensive vision is Caleb Downs. You know, Parker also mentioned something that I think speaks to the kind of person Downs is off the field too. He said Downs is the same guy they saw on tape, the same guy who came in for the 30 visit, intentional, consistent, just flatline in the best possible way. Not low energy, just steady, no peaks and valleys, same approach every single day. And apparently he has this natural gravitational pull around other players. People just gravitate toward him, want to be around him, follow his energy. Parker said Schottenheimer noticed it too. That kind of leadership presence in a rookie is genuinely rare, you know? And look, the fact that Christian Parker was literally scheduling text messages on his iPhone the night before the draft, setting them to go out at 8 a.m. so Will McClay would see Caleb Downs' face walking into the office, that tells you everything. That's a defensive coordinator who knew exactly who he wanted and wasn't leaving anything to chance. When Jerry made the call to trade up and secure him, Parker said he was pretty excited. And honestly, so was I. So are all we. The Cowboys gave up 2 fifth-round picks and moved up 1 spot to make sure Caleb Downs was theirs. And based on everything Christian Parker and Will McClay laid out, the football IQ, the force multiplier effect, the versatility, the leadership, the consistency, I'd say that trade looks like an absolute steal. This defense is about to look very different, guys, and Caleb Downs is the reason why.